When did slavery end? Honestly, I don't know. But you know what I'm doing right now? A Google most ask Google questions every day. I do a video of one of the most asked Google questions, and this is out of 1,000. So today is 921, which is when did slavery end? I have no clue. All right. When were blacks truly freed from slavery? I think it was like after the Civil War or something, right? I don't really know. What year did slavery end in the United States? 1865 it ended. Damn, what was a minute ago? Due to Union measures such as the Confiscation Acts and Emancipation Proclamation, in 1863 the war effectively ended slavery, even before ratification of the 13th Amendment. Alright. How to deal with depression. I was making a video on that. Oh, and I made a video on what is an orgasm if you want to go check that out. When did slavery end in the U.S.? Too long. Photos from slavery. These are photos from slavery?
Factsverse presents
The
photos of slavery from the past that will horrify you.
Okay.
Number 1. The Slave's Shackle, 1907. This is a horrifying photo. It is a picture of a British sailor removing the shackles on a slave's ankle in 1907. In order to keep the slaves in line during the journey from Africa, they had to keep them in shackles. This was to keep the slaves from running away. A very sad photo. Number 2. A woman and her slaves. When you first look at this photo, you wouldn't know that the men are slaves judging by the way they are dressed. The major clue is when you look down at their feet and you see they have no shoes on. In the 1860s, slaves were not allowed to wear shoes. Number 3. Slave children. Seeing photos of adult slaves is bad enough, but seeing child slaves is completely heartbreaking. Fortunately, by the time these children grew up, slavery was abolished. This gave them both a chance at a happy and productive life. Number 4. The African Slave Ship. Of all the photos of slavery from the past that will horrify you, this is possibly the worst. Back in slave days, ships went to Africa and they pulled these poor people from their homes to put them on ships and bring them overseas to be slaves. The number of Africans on the ship is heartbreaking. Number 5. U.S. prisoners forced to be slaves. This is a photo of United States prisoners who were captured and forced to be slaves during the war.
So white people were
The Japanese treated these poor people badly until they were either killed or freed. This photo shows you how horrible things were back then. Number 6. Sex slaves training for military duty. There are so many sad things about this picture, it's difficult to know where to begin. The girls in this photo are sex slaves, and they look like they are no older than 15 years old. These girls should be in high school, hanging out with their friends, studying and preparing for college. Instead, they are forced to be sex slaves. The Japanese needed as many soldiers as they could get, so they trained the sex slaves to fight in battle. There aren't too many photos more shocking than this one. Number 7. Freed slaves. Of all the pictures we've shown you so far, this one is the only one that shows some hope. In the top picture, you see a bunch of slaves wearing no shirts and no shoes. The photo on the bottom is of the same men after they were freed. They were fully clothed, wearing hats, and reading the newspaper. This must have been a great day for these men. Number 8. The worst men in the world. This is a photo of 3 Arabian slave dealers. It was their job to buy and sell human beings as slaves. These men are as bad as they come. There's no excuse for forcing a person into slavery and then making money for it. Number 9. Human zoos. In 1899, people took Selknam natives and used them in human zoos. This is one of the most inhumane things a person could ever do. The idea of putting people in cages so that the owners of the zoo can get paid by people to walk around looking at them is horrible. The poor people in these human zoos were not treated like humans at all. They had all of their human rights stripped away the second they were put into cages. Number 10. Tall women punished in China. In China, women were only supposed to grow so tall.
Wow.
Those who grew too tall were punished by spending their days standing with a door with holes over their heads and through their shoulders. It is very sad that back then people were punished for the way they looked.
They couldn't even...
Today, women in China are not punished for being too tall. Many tall women actually get very high-paying jobs as models. Number 11. Slaves in Brazil. Brazil is a very popular place for coffee crops. Today, people are paid to work in the fields and harvest those crops. The working conditions are safe today, and they work reasonable hours. Sadly, years ago, used as slaves a century or two ago. This is a picture of Irish slaves. 14. Amazonian slaves were stripped of their clothes and chains were put around.
That was easy.
Factsverse presents Photos of Slavery from the Past.
What's this one?
Factsverse presents 10 Interesting Facts Working for Medieval Kings.
Alright, never mind. Let's figure out what the reason that slavery and photos of slavery, history of slavery. Alright, this is the one that's gonna give us everything we know. Nation enslaved.
Why am I a slave? Why are some people slaves and some people masters? Was there ever a time when this was not so? How did the relation commence? Once, however, engaged in the inquiry, I was not finding
from the tobacco plantations of the Chesapeake to the rice fields of South Carolina, and disagreement over slavery would ultimately affect the lives of all Americans.
I don't think people like to talk about slavery. It's a topic that Americans try to avoid. And yet at the same time, it has such a huge impact on the people that we became, who we are today, that it's something that needs to be addressed and that people need to understand it.
Well, of course, slavery was a peculiar institution. It said that black people who were slaves in this country were essentially competent. They didn't have control over their own body, they didn't have control over their own labor, nor did they have control over their own time or family. The majority of slaves were field slaves. They worked essentially from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. There were the yard slaves, the artisans, most of the labor that was done in the South was done by slaves, where they were specialized in.
And it's excluded slavery. Books like
Interesting. Alright, well, this video was interesting. I guess there's so much you could learn about it. I really don't know a lot, but we did know they ended in 1865. That's when it ended in America, or the United States. Well, alright, this was an interesting video. Those pictures were something else, huh? For real. If you want, you could write a comment what you thought about, like, what do you think about slavery and stuff like that. Or, what you know about. Maybe you know something I don't know. Let a brother know. Alright, well, peace.